So the concepts that we're going to be talking about today are the real fundamentals in the Sefer Tanya. Keeps on mentioning these things again and again, and it's all based on the same model, same core concepts. So it's good to get the grasp of them, to remember these ideas, and then from there everything else will make much more sense. So number one, we spoke about last week about the two souls, the Nefesh Elikis and the Nefesh Bahamis, the godly soul and the animal soul. The animal soul is listed here first because we're born with the animal soul. When do we get the godly soul?
We got it by mitzvah.
By bar mitzvah, right? That's when we get the Yetzer Tov. When we're born, we just have an animal soul. It says in Sfarim that by the bris, on the 8th day, the neshama starts, getting a little into the body, but not full. Not, it's like sunrise. There's a little sliver of the sun.
Is that what a kid acting nicely is, or is that just copying like the parents' teachings?
It could be. When a kid does a mitzvah, it definitely
But
has some.
not even just more than a mitzvah, but like they think about somebody, like they do something nice for somebody. Like
I'm not
what's
sure.
that?
It's a good question.
Those are interesting. When we say like Tanika Shabbos Ramen, and we're all like the kids are so pure, but it's really like you're just a Yetzirah. Like what are you? You're a cute Yetzirah.
Where from an animal soul, right? Where is that?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. I can't tell you 100% where it's coming from because even other people that are nice, if they're just being nice because they're nice and they enjoy being nice,
Right.
it doesn't necessarily.
I mean, that's still not necessarily.
There's cute animals like Yosef says. There's cute animals too. Teddy bears, they're very cute. They're nice. They're gentle. Dogs, they could have a lot of love, but it's just natural. An animal, when we say animal, how it's coming because of who we are as people, not necessarily from somewhere deeper. So, for example, let's say I call up my mother before Shabbos. How are you? Is that coming? It's a mitzvah, right? Kibbud of the aim is a mitzvah. But I'm doing it also because it feels good. I like talking to her. If I would call her when I'm not in the mood of calling her, and I'm pushing myself, that's coming from the neshama. In other words, I'm going past my comfort level, doing something which I'm not quite in the mood of, only because it's the right thing to do. So kids definitely.
You used to call them,
Yeah.
even though it's still a mitzvah. Every week you could. You call them even if you want, if you don't, you call. So you used to it.
Right.
Still.
Was it because it's sort of like TV to you, like just to do it like without even thinking? You're saying just naturally do it.
Right.
Still better than not calling, that's for sure. And also, if you call even when you're not in the mood, it shows that even when you are in the mood, you're doing it also because it's the right thing.
For sure.
So we have an animal soul and a godly soul. It's a good question about the kids. I don't know if there's a clear-cut answer, but I do know that there is talks about in the Chazal, Hevel shel tinoikos shel beis Rabban, that the Torah that they learn is pure. They also don't have agendas. Kids are pure. They are pure,
Right.
and they are Jewish, and they are doing mitzvahs when they do mitzvahs, even though they're not obligated.
Isn't it a gradual process that goes on in terms of,
The neshama entering.
yeah?
So that's the.
We talk about different stages of it. When a child is able to understand the mitzvah
100%.
before and after.
It's actually it's mentioned in the Shulchan Aruch Harav. It says that the neshama enters by the bris milah. That's the first mitzvah, and then as children do more mitzvahs, the neshama enters, feels more at home. It comes more.
Yeah.
So it's a gradual process. On the other hand, Chazal say that until the bar mitzvah, the neshama doesn't really have much control. In other words, the dominant force by a child is just becoming mature, growing up, learning how to behave.
It's all about anochi. I mean, a child's all about me. It's like
Right.
it doesn't think about anyone else.
Well, at an early stage, that's my point. Is that when a child is 3 months old, it's concerned about its physical comforts, basically, right? But when a child is 7, 8 years old, it has a relationship with its siblings, with its schoolmates, with its teachers, stuff like that, and all those are expressions,
Right.
sophisticated expressions of kindness. Sometimes when they don't want to be kind,
Right.
they even are.
Yeah.
Right.
So, like everything else, it's more complicated than it seems, and there is.
I think it's a process. I don't think it's a switch that happens on.
But certainly by the bar mitzvah, the process is completed. The neshama enters fully into the person. That's why the animal soul is listed first. Usually, there's the Yetzer Hara is also called Melech Zakin Uksil, the old king, the old foolish king. Why is he old? Because he's there since birth, versus the neshama, which is a little younger.
Why is he foolish?
Huh?
Why is he foolish?
Why is he foolish? He's a smart aleck.
He's a smart aleck.
Yeah. He wants the short term, not the long term. He doesn't care about. Yeah. So that's why it's called the foolish. So the difference between the personality of the animal soul versus the godly soul you have here on the table, the animal soul is selfish, cares about me, what's good for me, what feels good. That's where it starts, and that's where it ends. On the other hand, the godly soul is altruistic, doesn't care about itself at all. Me, I'm not an issue. That's not the issue. The issue is what's better, what's the right thing, what does God want. The animal soul is embodied in the blood. That means it's just part of our flesh and blood.
Life
literally.
force.
Yeah, it's our life force, biological. It's not something mystical. The godly soul, on the other hand, is breathed into us, like it says by Adam Arishan, Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chayim Hashem blew. The neshamas means breath, right? Neshama comes from neshima, the breath of God that has entered us. It's something foreign that's imposed upon ourselves as a living person. Then we have the third thing: the animal soul seeks pleasure, the godly soul seeks godliness. The animal soul is a primal soul. That's the default settings that we have, and then there is the second soul. That's something extra that we get. The reason why we get it second is also because if they would be both, we get them both together. It would be hard for them to compete with each other. It's the animal soul selling us such cheap stuff, His ideas are like so shallow and short term, and the godly soul is coming with these huge ideas and connecting to God, which is like it's a whole different level. So if you hear both of them together, it's hard for the animal soul to get its point across. But once you get used to it, as a person, you grow up with. You're just a person. You have to eat, you have to drink, you go to sleep. You just take care of yourself. And then you get these, as you get older, you start realizing, wait, there's something beyond that. Then it's more of a free choice. And finally, the last thing is the animal soul relates to the natural, and the godly soul relates to the transcendent. The godly soul is always interested in what's beyond, what else could I do, I want to reach higher, I want to elevate myself. He's not happy just having a good life, what's considered good in just having enough money and enough of our bodily needs taken care of. He wants something, he's always looking for something beyond that. So that's the difference between the animal soul, the nefesh habahamis, and the nefesh elikis.
Can I ask you a question? When you talk about one seeks pleasure and one seeks godliness, I understand what pleasure is. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
What's the definition of godliness?
We don't understand what godliness is. We don't know what that word means. What does godliness even mean?
I agree.
Godliness is something connected to God. So what does it mean that the soul desires it? You don't even know what it means. And the answer is that the soul, where does the soul come from? The soul comes from God. He was breathed into God. In other words, what is that? What is the definition of that? That means it's not something that God created. It's part of God, which He gave into us. It's a chip that comes from God Himself. And there's a big difference between God creating something out of nothing. So God says, there should be light, and then there's light out of nothing. That light was not His. It's not part of Him. It's something He knows how to do magic. He just creates stuff out of nothing, right? However, that's very different than a neshama, which comes from Him in the same way like a son comes from a father. It's a part of the father that goes into the son. Father and mother.
So when it seeks godliness, it's seeking its source?
It's seeking its source, yes. In other words, the soul has awareness of more than, when it comes into the body, everything's through the lens of it sees everything through the lens of the body, through physical eyes and physical ears, etc. But it does have this sense, which I come from somewhere else. I'm not from here. I want that, that longing to reconnect with itself, with its source, which we call godliness, because it's not just God himself, it's also anything related to God. Anything that reminds it of God or strengthens the connection to God is something that makes it feel very good. It's like, now I feel good again. This is just, I feel me, I feel alive. So that's the idea.
This also applies to Goyim?
It's a good question. We need a book for Goyim to really.
I mean, every human has a soul.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and everybody comes from Adam Arishon. So if God breathed into him, it would.
You're coming from that angle. We're all children of Adam Arishain, so why is there a difference between Jews and non-Jews?
And so everybody's a seller of the Shem. So.
Everyone's a tzelem Elokim, right? So this is a question that actually the Ramchal deals with it in one of his Farim, Derech Hashem. He says that Adam Arishain was gifted this special soul, right? He was definitely unique. Adam Arishain didn't give over everything he had to his children. He was created physically by God. God, put him together. His children were created just by the regular reproductive methods. They were not created by God's hands, so to speak. What about the soul? So, some of his children turned out better than others, right? Cain wasn't. Hevel was a little more pure, and then you had throughout history, there was tzaddikim, and there were wicked people, and there were tzaddikim, chanoich. So the Ramchal says that this gift of having a neshama didn't automatically go to all Adam's descendants. Definitely doesn't look like that. They were so egotistical that there's the whole world, but you have, we're fighting over. Cain and Hevel are fighting like as if they're in the Middle East, or there's like a little tiny piece of land that they're fighting over. There's a whole universe. You go this way, I'll go that way. You'll never meet in 100 years, but they're fighting. So Cain definitely had this. He was very much the nefesh Bahamas that was very embodied in him. Hevel we don't know too much about, but in Kabbalah talks that he had a very high neshama. And then throughout history, having a neshama was a special gift, which certain people got if they merited to have a neshama. Whether it was Noach or Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Until he says it's like it's a process of Hashem created lots of people, and then from the best ones, he's sort of preparing the ground for the Jewish people. So lahavdil. So, but that's what he says. So from the best of those people, he took the best of those, and then Avraham Avinu was amazing, right? But then he had a child that didn't turn out so great. And then from the best one, from Yitzchak had 2 children, Yaakov and Esav. Esav went the other way. And then from Yaakov,
Only Yaakov had
Yaakov had it wasn't all there were mitasei shleima. It says all his children, yeah. So they all turned out okay. They had some ups and downs, but they all turned out all right. And this is the beginning of the Jewish people as we know it. That Hashem gifted Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov that all their children should get the neshama automatically. Just by the fact that they're Jewish, they get this neshama. So the whole idea of a neshama is not a natural thing. It's not something that we'd expect to happen.
Not all their children got the neshama.
Who? Only Yaakov.
Yaakov's children.
Yaakov's children.
Yeah.
So the collection of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, those 3 generations, they got the.
But there were some that were pushed aside in the first
only
and
when
second.
the third one, only when Yaakov came came and did his service of God, that Hashem finalized that this is the Bnei Yisrael, we're children of Yisrael. But they're also called Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are considered our avos, our forefathers. Why is that? What about Terach? Terach is also one of our forefathers, no?
Lavan.
The Marisha.
Lavan.
Lavan. Yeah, we had lots of people in our family.
Everyone has a crazy uncle.
Everyone has a crazy
We
uncle.
get a lot from Lavan.
Right. That's true. That's so true. You're the one for your family. So why are they called the forefathers? Who was that guy that said those forefathers? Because it's forefathers. Yeah, got mixed up. So why are they called forefathers? Because each of them gave an inheritance to all their descendants, something that goes forever. We have something from Avram in each of us. We have something from Yitzchak in each of us, and we have something from Yaakov. We'll see that on the next page. So starting from Yaakov, everyone has a soul. Could it be that a non-Jew also has a neshama? And again, not a soul everyone has. The question is what type of soul.
We talk about Gerim. No question was
Gerim, yeah. So for Gerim, it says that they have someone who ends up converting.
Was retroactively there.
Retroactively, it shows that he had a nefesh alikis, a godly soul. Why did Hashem give it to him? Because he decided, this is like Rus and all these special people that they weren't just, they were more than just a regular. Not only did they have a soul, they had a very elevated soul. And but that's another topic. But I'll just in brackets I'll just say that there's an interesting statement in Kabbalah that sometimes when there's a very special soul that needs to come down to the world, there's a little bit of a kitrug, like not everyone agrees, not all the malachim agree. If you want to send it down to the goyim, okay, fine, let them have it. So the environment is not so conducive to being a great person. If the soul really fights and really insists, so it'll turn out okay.
And not to go too much off topic, there are those that say that that's why Eretz Yisrael was founded by the secular.
Yeah.
They said there was so much kedusha that to come down here. If a bunch of the religious would have come to Eretz Yisrael, there would too much of a kitrug in Shemaim.
Oh wow.
So Hashem had to go to the secular people.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That follows the path of Mashiach through history.
Who?
Mashiach.
Mashiach.
That was from Rus.
Sort of seed through history.
Yeah.
The way all these crazy situations.
Where does Rus come from?
Moav,
From
right?
Moav.
Moav, not Moav, right?
Right.
Moav
Moav from light, from the
No, you can't marry. You couldn't marry to Moav.
Right.
Moav, not Moav, whatever. Like that.
So that's the short answer, not such short answer about to what extent do goyim have it. Sometimes we don't know. It's not something that in general goyim throughout history, unlike today, were mostly anti-Semites. Wherever we got to know them, they weren't interested in knowing the answer to that question. There was no audience. Now you have Ask the Rabbi, all these websites. The Gentiles want to know, do I also have a soul? And what mitzvahs could I do? It's like we live in special times. So now that we got to know the soul a little bit, let's go down to the next table. This is also from last week. We talked about faculties versus garments. Or to use the words in Lashon Kodesh, there is the koiches hanefesh, the faculties of the soul, versus garments of the soul, levushim. Kochot and levushim. What's the difference? The soul has the core of itself, the inside, what you want. That's part of the essence of your soul. Yourself, your composition. There's all different words to describe the koiches hanefesh. These are the traits of your soul. On the other hand, the garments of the soul is the outsides. It's what you do. Not what you want, but what you actually do. Like in that story of Elvel Green. He wasn't interested, he was really interested in something else, but he decided, he made that conscious decision, I'm not eating that sandwich, even though I want it so much, I want it so badly, and I'm upset at the whole world. We're capable as human beings to make those choices. That when we're not in the mood, we still go ahead and do something else.
Which soul are we talking about now?
Both of them.
This is together?
It goes in both ways. The animal soul has this collection, and also
they both have it.
Yeah.
They use it differently.
We'll see soon how it comes together, how it all comes together. But in general, a soul has the capability of doing something, and it has the capability to want and to think. So the garments are much more within our choice, within our range of choice to control. We have much more control over garments versus who we are. It's not really, I can't start liking something if I don't like it. It's not so easy. Maybe with a lot of training, eventually I'll change a bit, but it's not so simple. Garments is something we can. So here we go on the next page. This is just to zoom in and just to get the full picture. The faculties of the neshama, and this is again both of them, the animal soul and the godly soul. The 10 faculties are written over here. Sorry about the low quality of the picture. The first 3 are ideas, Chabad, Chachma, Bina, Da'at, and then you have the feelings, Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet, Chagat, and then you have Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut, Nehim. Those are the 7 feelings or emotions, emotive traits of the soul. Not to know what each one means, it doesn't really matter so much, doesn't have so much impact on understanding life. Just good to know. The reason it's emphasized, all these different terminologies, is because it connects us to Hashem. In other words, we know about Hashem that Hashem has 10 faculties, or 10 ways of expressing himself. This is written in the Zohar, and it's written in Sefer Yetzirah. Sefer Yetzirah is the oldest Jewish book, besides for Chumash. Very ancient. It talks about how Hashem has these 10 attributes, 10 ways of expressing himself. And the fact that we have the same 10, at least they have the same names, even though they're not exact, of course, they're very different. But the same groupings of ideas versus feelings, which in Hashem there's also those 2 groupings. The 10 attributes of Hashem are divided into cognitive and feelings and emotions. So the fact that we have the same thing as Hashem is the definition of B'Tselem Elokim, that we're created in the image of God. What does it mean, the image of God? This is what it means. Hashem has these 10 attributes, and we have something remotely similar. We also have these 10 attributes. Of course, when we speak...
It comes from his breath, right?
Comes from his breath, so why shouldn't it not be like him? It's like yeah.
Do we understand that Hashem has 10 attributes, or that Hashem chooses to communicate with the universe throh these methods? Because I thought there was an idea.
It's very good to clarify that point.
That there's no division within Hashem.
Right. 100%. That's something, a point that's discussed a lot. The simple answer is, the 10 attributes of Hashem is, imagine, let's say you have your, all these bottles are clear actually, no color ones, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
clear.
Imagine a bottle of wine with a color, and you look at the wine, you see a certain color. You have also tainted windows, that this light from the sun shining through the window, and then you get on the other side, you see a bunch of colors. The light itself doesn't have any. It does have colors, actually. It has the potential for colors, just like Hashem has a potential for everything. But the glass sort of breaks it breaks the spectrum of light into a certain color. Certain color is allowed to pass through this part of the glass versus another part that allows another part to pass. And in the same way, that's what it means when we talk about the attributes of Hashem. It means Hashem's singular light is passing through these filters, so to speak, which are sort of limiting only a certain part of his light to come through. And then it gets, when we talk about the kindness,
which are things that we can relate to at that
right.
point.
Yeah. If it would just be this ambiguous light without any definition, like we can't relate. And it definitely helps that we have the same 10 attributes within ourselves.
Right.
And we can say, oh, so Hashem is Chachma. I have no idea what that means, but Chachma means wisdom. I have wisdom. So we're somehow related. We have some. I can try to grasp a little bit, what that means, even if it's totally different. It's only the same word, but it says Lo machshavotay machshavotechem, which doesn't only mean that God has different thoughts than we have. Like He has ideas, or He knows the reasons for things and we don't know. That's not, the pasuk doesn't have to tell us that He's more brilliant. Of course, it's telling us more than that. His thoughts are different. It means something else. It doesn't mean thoughts like we think it means. It's a different it's totally something else. It's a totally different thing, which just has a very remote similarity. Just like by us, our wisdom guides us, sort of by Hashem, His wisdom is His guiding principles. But what it is, it's something totally different. So B'Tselem Elokim Asa Sa'adam means that we are created with these 10 attributes, just like Hashem, including non-Jews, because their animal soul is also created with the same 10. So these are the 10. Of course, the goal is for the ideas, the cognitive part of the soul, to dominate the feelings. Feelings are just, they come and go. They're not always. They can be more natural, relatively more natural. Thoughts go much further. Our ideas can go much further, and we can see what we really need to do and go beyond our comfort level, even beyond our neshama's comfort level. So that's the 10 faculties. And then on the bottom over here, we have the garments of the soul, the levushim. What are the 3 garments that neshama has? These 3: thought, speech, and action. So action is clearly a garment because I can do or not do. That's easy. Eat the sandwich, not eat the sandwich. Speech, I can say I only want a kosher meal, even though I don't eat kosher, but I can say it. Thoughts is a little more tricky. Can I think? Could I consciously choose a certain thought? Well, I could. I could see the bright side of things if I want, even if I'm in a bad situation.
You have the will to, right.
I have to reframe the situation. I have to decide I'm going to see it. I want to be positive. I'm choosing to think about it in a positive way, even though that's not my intuitive way of relating to what happened, but I'm choosing to have positive thoughts. I could think whatever I want to think, It's not going to be easy to sustain that for too long. My other thoughts will come back, but a little bit, I do have some measure of control over implanting, maybe not what not to think, but at least what yes to think. I could put good ideas into my head. I could open a book and I'll start thinking about what it says there, right? So we have some control over our thoughts as well.
Opening a book is action.
Yeah, but then I'll read it and then it'll go into my head. So so you need technique sometimes to plant an idea into your head.
Sounds like they all play off of each other.
Huh?
Sounds like they all play off of each other.
They do, yeah.
Like
Thoughts.
the action to change your thought, thing to change your action, whatever.
Yeah, they all work together. It's a whole big.
Hopefully.
What?
Hopefully they all work together.
CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is like the
Yes,
circle. Thoughts, feelings, and that. So they're all the levushim. They could be changed with some effort. Now we go to the 3rd page, and here's where things come together. And this is the surprise that we have two sets of 10. The animal soul has 10 attributes, so does the godly soul. But there's only one set of garments. There's only one set of garments.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
It's competition.
That means this competition. In other words, practically speaking, yes, every soul has its own garments, but practically speaking, when they're put together in the same body, you can't think 2 things at once. You can't do and not do at the same time. Either you're going to do or you're not going to do. So the soul has this ability or it's able to have the intention to do something. That intention to do is a garment. But could it actually do? It needs hands and feet to actually do it.
So, like I told self over here, where it's, you have the 3.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be inside, or it's supposed to be.
They're both the same because we're talking about the faculties. The top is the faculties.
Okay.
Then on the bottom it says 3 garments. Not right here. See?
Got you. Okay, now I see.
So we're talking about, now we're matching, we're like looking at the full picture. We have 2 souls. Each of them have 10 faculties. See, that's what you see on the top here. There's the 10 faculties of the animal soul, 10 faculties of the godly soul. Each one of them has the same thing. We're talking about the inside of it, inside of the godly and the animal, what you want, yourself, composition of the soul. And then you have the garments on the bottom. They're each trying to get their way. And that's where things get tricky.
I thought we said the.
Amen.
The animals, we find it initially is the animal soul and the godly soul. We said the animal soul is obviously more selfish,
Mm-hmm.
more whereas the godly soul is more altruistic.
Right. So if you look at both of them together, so they have we're talking about the 10 faculties of each one, which are different. They have, in other words, let's say we talk about the animal soul. What is the animal soul sense of love? Chesed. Chesed is love and kindness. All that attraction. Attraction to what? Attraction to what I want. Attraction to what's going to make me feel good. So yes, it's the inside of the animal soul. Compare that to the inside of the godly soul. What is his concept of love? Loving something transcendent, loving my source, connecting to Hashem, loving God. So they have very different ways of looking at things. It's complete opposites. It's a marriage of two, very odd marriage, the Nefesh Elikis and Nefesh Bahamis. But they do have to gain from each other, because the animal soul has a lot of energy. And we're talking about not an evil soul. It's not called a gates evil soul.
Do we come here to eat pizza or to learn Torah?
Well, for both.
They're working together.
They work together. Yeah. Well,
Doesn't
you gotta
matter
take
just
care
so
of
long
both.
as you're here.
You have to take.
Doesn't
You have to
matter
take
just
care
so long as
of
you're
both. You have to take. Certainly, you have to take care of your body. Your body is like the container here. Your body, there's no question. You have to take care of your body. Your animal soul. If you take care of your animal soul, it's going to get a little fatter, a little bigger, and more of an into a monster. In other words, when you pamper the animal soul, it doesn't happen overnight. When you pamper your animal soul,
There's a
it
difference
starts.
between taking care of the body and the
Yeah.
animal soul.
Yeah.
Where
In other
does
words,
that
if you eat
go?
healthy, for example, and you do exercise, you're taking care of your body. There's no doubt that's the right thing to do. If you have problems with your body, you can have problems with the garments of both souls, and you're not going to be able to do much. You're going to just lay in bed. So you have to take care of yourself. However, if I pamper myself in ways that are not healthy, it's only the animal soul's interested in it anyway, because it serves my, feels good, it gets me excited. So what's going to happen tomorrow? He's going to say, give me some more of that, Give me more and more and more. That's the animal soul's reaction.
So if it's good for the body in a good way, then that's a good gauge.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Because
Because
the
animals
sweets
in-
after a meal is good for the body.
Mhm.
Making the sweets the main course, that's like I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance, and that's why we have to be on the. That's part of why Avodas Hashem is a little tricky.
Regards. Right.
If you indulge
Get
yourself,
It's just how
if you indulge yourself l'shem shamayim, you say, listen, a class without any refreshments, no one's going to come, and we're not going to want to come next time. Let's make it enjoyable. So we're elevating all that stuff and making it part of serving the neshama's agenda and Hashem's agenda. And if we do it just for the other, the opposite way, we'll say to the animal soul, it's gonna take away let me browse the news for a few hours. Why? Just feels good. It's interesting. And then what happens? I don't have time to learn. I wake up late. It doesn't serve me any good. It's not healthy either. It just makes me more negative. A lot of classic choices that we have where the animal soul's coming with its thing that it wants, and it doesn't really taking care of the animal soul in that way doesn't really
No, it's
make us
the body,
any
not the
happier.
soul.
Yeah, the body
It's
is
not those urges.
right. Yeah, 100%. And finally, we have here on the bottom this is just an interesting perspective. You have the famous.
So is there, we're jumping to the bottom, I just want to ask,
Yeah, sure.
there must be a struggle and a compromise and a dominance and a submission
Oh yeah.
between these two souls as to what the garments are going to do.
You bet. It's a big fight.
Okay,
It's a big fight, and that's the war that's going on
right.
inside us between these two totally different personalities that we have inside us.
Right.
We sometimes get confused by it, like, what do we really want? So one day I'm like this, one day I'm like that. Like, who am I really? One day I'm davening in shul, and I enjoy it so much, and then the next day I could be acting as if I'm someone different, as schizophrenic. Like, who am I? Who is the real me? The answer is they're both the real me. I have this guy inside and that guy inside. They're both here. And each one, sometimes this one dominates, sometimes that one dominates. And I need to do my best to...
But isn't there a goal that the godly soul should eventually train the animal soul
To some
in
extent,
its service?
at least as far as the garments are concerned.
That's what I'm
In
saying.
other words, this helps us prepare for the future, for what we're going to learn later.
Interesting. You're saying the garment. You're saying
The garments is where you could win. You could win the fight when it comes to the garments.
Right.
When it comes to changing, it's like a husband tries to change his wife, make her want something else. Good luck with that. But you can have when it comes to garments,
you can buy her a bigger ring.
yeah, that's right.
Right.
So when it comes to choices, you can get to a level where the choices are your choices. You're the one that's deciding the final thing, the bottom line. Is the soul still going to have all kinds of other desire? The animal soul, probably.
Is this the Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara? Is that just identical to the animal soul and the Shema?
It's the Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara is like a subsection of each of them. In other words, when an animal soul wants to do something bad, it's called the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer, what is Yetzer? Yetzer means an urge, a craving to do something bad. Sometimes we get a kick out of doing something bad just because it's like, it's wrong. So, or we're doing it because it's bad. It feels good to do something bad, ironically, sometimes. So, mayim genuvim yim taku, the stolen waters are sweet. They're like, this is, so, Yetzer Hara, but an animal soul is it's something much bigger than just the Yetzer Hara.
It's subsumed in that.
Yeah.
It's not another entity being
Yeah,
introduced
right.
into that.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the Yetzer Tov.
Yeah.
It's an urge from the Neshama.
Right. No, there's also more. So the real answer is a little more complicated, but we're trying to simplify things like what's relevant for us for daily life.
No, I'm just trying to find
Yeah.
it's category.
Yeah. So it fits into each one fits into that soul. Under that part of that soul is the urge to do something. Right. So the fight is a big fight. That's the story of life. Well, that's what we're here for, to have this fight. And a tzaddik is able to win the fight conclusively. In other words, to kill the other, not to kill, but to sublimate the other side, the nefesh habahamis, and change it. And then you have two souls that are both that he sort of converts. He does a conversion process to the.
No, but it seems to me that an animal. It's a tremendously powerful thing, but that it can be controlled. It can wear a yoke, it can wear a harness, it can wear a bit in its mouth, right?
Yeah.
And then it can become a tremendously productive thing
Right.
under those conditions, right?
And that's possible even for an average person, for us.
Right.
For regular people, we can take when a nefesh elikis likes something, it's like, yeah, I like it. It's very quiet. It's not really the passion of a nefesh elikis. That's just, it feels a little like a guest in this world. It's not such a, it's not an animal. Animals like, it has this, huge, strong, very powerful muscles, and it can move, it can do very heavy lifting. Nefesh elikis is this quiet little, he wants the right thing, but he's a little quiet. It says, "V'rav tevua is b'koyach shor." You can get a lot more grain with the power of an ox. But an ox, when it's not restrained, it can go wild. But if you train it, you can leverage it.
Yosef was considered the ox, and he was the tzaddik.
Yeah. So he sort of transformed
He also dealt with grain.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Huh? You're fine. That's amazing. That's a very interesting connection. So we could definitely take the part of the advantages that the animal soul brings to the table is the passion.
Right.
When it becomes involved, and you can train the animal soul just like a little kid wants candies, and then it gets a little older. Kid gets older, he wants a game, and animal souls can become more mature. If you can convince the animal soul that being a Jew is fun and fulfilling, and it fills you with pleasure, and it's the best thing in the world, the animal soul will get interested. Will he never want his other stuff? Not necessarily. He'll still one day say, "Hey, what about that?" But you could bring him, like it says in Maseches Brachos.
Bring him with the show.
Yeah.
Pizza.
Well,
Bring him in with the pizza.
bring him with the
You
pizza.
got 2 hours of learning it.
So this is the Chol Levavcha with Shnei Yitzarecha. You bring also the Yetzer Hara. You're sort of convincing him that even for his benefit, you want to feel good, you don't want to stress and whatever, you want to feel like you accomplished something, meaning to you want meaning, everyone wants meaning.
But there's a great deal in Yiddishkeit that is a pleasure for the animal soul.
Yeah.
You know,
Like,
outside of Purim and Simcha story.
right. Yeah.
But in the daily life.
So we don't want to, you know, the line doesn't, it's not like a black and white line where
Right.
there's a lot of gray areas. And with all those things, what makes it count as a mitzvah, as a win for the nefesh elikis, for the godly soul, is if it's done with the intention, l'shem shamayim.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you're eating a Shabbos meal, which is delicious, and you're eating it because it's Shabbos, then there's no question that everything you ate there is becoming part of this mitzvah. Even if you don't, it's also a mitzvah, but it's a much more significant win. If we're talking about, technically speaking, you eat on Shabbat, it's a mitzvah no matter what. But if we're talking about what's really going on behind the scenes, like what's Sunday going to look like for me? If on Shabbat I was just careless and ate everything, you know, on the table without thinking about Hashem at all, it wasn't spiritual. It was just, you know, I cooked a lot and I ate all day and then I went to sleep. It's a mitzvah to sleep on Shabbos, right? Everything's a mitzvah on Shabbos. So I just had a good time. What's Sunday going to look like? I want to do the same thing on Sunday, even though it's not a mitzvah. But it was just so good yesterday. What do I care? The animal soul is like, you fed me yesterday, feed me again.
Shabbos Sheni.
Let me have a malka now. But if it's done with the intention, it's Shabbos, and it's like, okay, it elevated the experience. Okay, we're almost done. So we have another minute here. So just looking at this famous pyramid of hierarchy of needs from Maslow. So Abraham Maslow, he happened to be Jewish, right? But he wasn't such a frum person necessarily. But he described the hierarchy of needs of human beings, which is since then till today, a lot of time passed, still considered valid.
Right.
You have the basic needs, and you have, if you don't have food, you're not going to think about anything else that's higher on the pyramid. Like I'm looking for a job that I like. Who cares about the job? If you like it or not, you need food on the table. And and then there's higher levels, love and belonging. If you have the bottom, you want the things that are higher up. Eventually you can reach to the top, which is self-actualization. It's interesting, he actually, later on, he wrote that there's actually another level of transcendence, which is not on his chart. For whatever reason, it never made it into his pyramid, because he published it too late and he was already old and it didn't catch on. But it was like, there's something more than this. He was spiritual. I think he had other religions that he was involved with. But he says the experience of transcendence, that's not part of my chart. I don't, and it's something that could be much more powerful than all these things together. And all these things, the way, if we're looking, where's the godly soul in this table? Where's the animal soul and where's the godly soul?
The godly souls we assume is higher and the animal soul is lower. You're going to say it's everywhere?
Well, the right answer that I'm looking for, at least, is that it's all the animal soul. In other words, the animal soul is capable of this whole range of desires, from the most basic, wanting to sleep and eat, till morality, creativity. The animal soul also likes being creative. Doesn't mean you're
still above the nature kind of thing.
It's still part of itself. It's like I have everything else. What else is there to live for?
For the man who has everything.
What?
For the man who has everything.
Yeah, I want to be
He has
creative.
morality.
It's the soul of a human being versus animal.
It makes me feel good when I'm moral. It can make me feel very good. Why am I doing it? I once met a homeless person. I gave him $1, and then he says, my mother always used to say, you should always give charity because it will come back to you. So I can give charity with that kind of thinking. It will come back to me, Everything's like it's good for me. Which is, maybe it's true, but that shouldn't be the reason. That's not our reason why we give charity. We're giving it because that person deserves it.
And Hashem says, test me.
It's also true. Hashem will give it back to us. But we're not really thinking about that so much. It's like right now that guy deserves it. So that's a little summary of what our classes are short relatively. So,
but it seems to me
no reason to go fast.
that in our understanding of the Ratzon of Hashem, the will of Hashem, it actually appeals to both parts of our soul, both the animal soul and the Nefesh Elokis, in the sense that you just gave an example. You know, that things that you would assume are part of the godly soul are also part of the animal soul as well. It just depends on what your point of view, why you're doing it, not what you're doing. If you're acting morally, why are you acting morally? And I think God has the answer to that question.
What's his answer?
What?
What is his answer?
Because I want you to. That's right. And I'm going to, you can feel good about it. Your animal soul can feel good about acting morally, right? Because it's acting in concert with your godly soul at that point.
So where it becomes tricky
And
is
that
when,
would strengthen the action, the garment.
so as long as it's in line with what Hashem wants, it's good.
Yeah.
What happens if it's not? The animal soul says, I don't really care. I was happy to eat kosher food on Shabbat because you had it. But if you don't have it anymore, give me something else. It's like an animal; it doesn't really care. It's agnostic. It's like it doesn't matter to me so much. So that's the big picture. You're 100% right. We have the animal soul is not meant to starve or like to be, like not taking it and saying you're not going to get anything you want at all. It'll get plenty, and it'll be a happy camper. We just have to train it, to certain things are off limits, and then there's plenty that's still okay and can even become a positive godly experience.
Can real